He was hired to clean the floors, not solve equations that stumped half the senior class. But one teacher thought it would be funny to put him on the spot, right? There in front of a room full of students, the laughter started as a whisper, then grew. What no one expected was how quickly that moment would turn from mockery to pure shock. Because when he picked up the chalk, something happened that would change the way this entire school looked at him and at themselves forever. But by then, it was already too late. Darius Miller had been the school's janitor for nearly a decade. Every morning, he arrived before sunrise, unlocking doors, sweeping hallways, and making sure the classrooms were spotless before students poured in. He wasn't just staff, he was part of the rhythm of the building, the quiet figure who kept everything running. Most barely noticed him, but those who did knew he carried himself with calm dignity. What few realized was that behind his warm smile and steady work ethic lay a mind sharper than most of the students. He walked past every day. That Friday morning started no different. The smell of fresh coffee drifted from the teacher's lounge. Lockers clanged shut, and the murmur of teenage voices filled the halls. Darius was cleaning a scuffed floor outside the math wing when a teacher called out to him. It seemed harmless at first, just a request, but the way the students' eyes followed him into that classroom felt different. He didn't know it yet, but in a matter of minutes, every pair of eyes in that room would be locked on him, for a reason none of them could have imagined. When Darius stepped into the classroom, the air felt heavier than it should have. Rows of students turned in their seats, some smirking, others whispering just loud enough for him to hear his own name. The teacher, Mr. Collins, stood by the whiteboard with a smug smile, marker in hand. "Darius," he said, motioning toward the board covered in symbols and numbers.
"Think you can solve this?"
The equation sprawled across the surface, like a puzzle meant to intimidate. A calculus problem even the brightest students were struggling to crack. The question wasn't really a question. It was bait, the kind of bait meant to draw a laugh, to remind everyone of where he belonged. For a split second, Darius froze. He knew the game being played. It wasn't the first time he'd been underestimated. But never had it been so public, so deliberate. A few students chuckled, their laughter carrying the sharp edge of mockery. One boy muttered, "Let's see the janitor try." Darius could have walked out. He could have brushed it off and let them have their laugh. But something inside him refused. He set down the mop handle against the wall and stepped forward. Each footstep echoing in the silent room, the marker felt strange in his hand, not because he didn't know what to do with it, but because of the weight of all the eyes watching, waiting for him to fail. As he studied the problem, the whispers grew. "This is gonna be good. No way he even knows what those symbols mean." Even Mr. Collins leaned back, arms crossed, like he was already enjoying the punchline. But then Darius began to write, slowly at first, breaking the equation down, line by line. His handwriting was neat, confident, each step flowing into the next. The smirks began to fade, replaced by puzzled glances. The laughter stopped. By the time he reached the last line, the only sound in the room was the squeak of the marker. He capped it, stepped back, and there it was, the correct answer, circled neatly in black ink. A stunned silence hung over the class, but beneath it, Darius could still feel the sting of what had just happened. This wasn't about math. This was about a man being put on display, reduced to a stereotype in front of people who didn't even know his story. And yet, in proving them wrong, he had set something else in motion, something far bigger than a solved equation. Because word about what happened in that room was about to spread through the school, and not everyone would be happy about it. By Monday morning, the story had traveled through every hallway, whispered over lunch tables, and replayed in hushed tones in the teacher's lounge. Students who had been there told it like a legend, how the janitor had done what half the class couldn't. Some spoke with awe, others with irritation, as if his success had somehow disturbed the natural order. But not everyone found it amusing. When Darius arrived for his shift, the principal's secretary handed him a note to report to the front office. Waiting there was Mr. Collins, his jaw tight, arms folded. The principal sat stiffly behind her desk, voice clipped and cold. They accused him of disrupting a class, of overstepping boundaries. Every word dripped with something unspoken, something Uglier than policy, Darius tried to explain. He'd only answered a question posed to him, but their faces didn't soften. Instead, they hinted that perhaps this school wasn't the right fit for him anymore. And then came the real blow: his hours were cut. Effective immediately. No warning, no real reason beyond a vague claim about budget adjustments. He could feel the humiliation burn in his chest, not just for the insult, but for how easily they twisted his act of dignity into grounds for punishment. As he walked out of that office, past the rows of lockers and bulletin boards he'd passed for years, students looked at him differently now. Some avoided his gaze. Others stared too long. He could almost hear the unspoken question in their eyes. Why would they do this to him? Darius knew the answer, and in that moment he made a choice. They could strip his hours, threaten his job, try to bury the moment in shame, but they couldn't erase what happened in that classroom. Because the truth was already out, and it was spreading faster than they could contain it. In the days that followed, Darius kept his head down, finishing his reduced shifts in silence. But outside those walls, the story refused to die. Students posted about it online, some defending him, others exposing how the school had punished him for nothing more than proving them wrong. Former graduates chimed in, sharing their own stories of quiet discrimination. Within those same halls, one morning, a local news crew showed up at the gates, asking questions the administration didn't want to answer. Parents began demanding to know why a respected employee was being pushed out for something that should have been celebrated. For the first time, the school's silence wasn't enough to make it all go away. Darius never returned to full-time work there, but the incident changed him, and not in the way they might have hoped. He started speaking at community centers, sharing his story with young people, reminding them that knowledge isn't bound by job titles or uniforms, that dignity comes from within, not from the labels others try to place on you. Because what happened in that classroom was bigger than a math problem. It was about the way society decides who gets to be respected and who doesn't. It was about how easily a moment of brilliance can be twisted into an excuse to push someone aside when the real discomfort comes from seeing a stereotype shatter in real time. Darius's story is one of countless others, stories that together form a truth too heavy to ignore. The question is, how many more will it take before we stop pretending this doesn't happen?